7.7 is much more
Actually,
accurate.
it's closer to 50.
Yes.
Say that, right?
So the interesting thing, well, there's a couple of interesting things. We're going to talk about, first we'll check. Check first, interesting things after.
What are we checking?
7.1 and the quiz. Somebody tell me what the troposphere is. Cody. Troposphere.
All the spheres outside of that one sphere? Or no, that's that.
The weather layer.
That's the weather layer. That's the layer we live in. That's where weather happens. Above the troposphere, there's not really that much changing weather. What do you call the area where the troposphere stops, Mark? Every layer has this, every sphere. All right, so our Earth here, our troposphere inside here. Sphere. And then the place where it's the line where it stops is called the
A layer? Line?
kind of, but no. Has a specific name where the troposphere stops.
Claws.
Tropopause. Right. That's the line where it stops. Excuse me. What's the next layer? Geneva. The second layer up is the
Stratosphere?
stratosphere. And where the stratosphere stops is the Richard.
Stratopause.
Hey, nailed it. First try. The stratopause. What's next? Mesosphere. And where the mesosphere stops is called Leah.
Mesopause.
Bingo. All right.
You're gonna run out of board.
Well, that'll happen to the best of us. What's the next layer called?
Thermosphere.
Thermosphere. And then we have the thermopause. And then what's after the thermosphere?
The exosphere.
Exosphere. And that just kind of goes on forever and ever. Right? There's no real exopause.
No real air.
Well, there's not a lot of air either. No?
Hey, so Mr. Kent,
Yes.
what's Freedom 7?
Freedom 7 was rock
Yes, so. Why is it on here?
because it was relevant when they wrote the book.
Where's that?
It's
And then the space shuttle. Don't they use the space shuttle to go to the...
no, Space Shuttle was retired in 2012.
What did they use to get up to the International Space Station?
Russian rockets.
Why a Russian rocket?
Because
NASA's just
quit.
burning up money then?
Roughly. That's been NASA's goal for the last 50 years. Might as well keep it up. NASA is a government entity, and as a result, is inherently wasteful. Let me put it into perspective. Elon Musk can get a rocket into the air and back for what, a fifth of what NASA can?
Why did
So Elon Musk can shoot
But
up
why
five
don't they
rockets.
just send some people to Russia? Watch them build rockets.
Because the Russians do things too simply. And that's just ridiculous, and we can't be doing that. A great example of that is when astronauts wanted to write in space, you take just a normal everyday ballpoint pen, like such, and if you try to write with it upside down, it will stop working after a while because gravity pulls the ink down. So you need gravity to make a ballpoint pen work. The Americans, when they were trying to solve this issue of ballpoint pens in space, they just invented a special pen with a pressurized ink cartridge. It's called the double heart paper mate. You can still buy them. They're not that expensive. They'll write underwater. They'll write upside down. Pretty cool. The Russians used graphite pencils.
Why not?
And that's about the best best way to illustrate kind of the difference between the American and the Russian space culture.
That's actually really fun.
That is.
So there you go. All right, let's start here by checking this quiz. Just go over the answers and we'll check
The
7.1.
Russians just make good and the Americans
Make a new pen.
make it in.
Spend it was a couple $1 million to spend on developing the pen. Very cool.
Dumb.
Number 1 is D, the ionosphere, can bounce certain types of radio waves. 2, I. 3 is A. 4, C. 5, E. 6, F. 7 is actually true. 8 is nitrogen. 9 is true. And 10 is mesopause.
The turbo pause.
Turbopause. That's when you're trying to get your diesel truck to go super fast, and something breaks in your
Mr.
turbo.
Ken,
Can I help you?
why is the most dangerous form of ultraviolet radiation UV?
That's the
Because
stuff
if
that'll
they-
kill you pretty much like right away. It's just that the ozone layer absorbs all of that. All right. So the UVB will give you sunburn. The UVC will just kill you.
How fast will it be?
I don't know.
How are they running upside down?
Well, see, the thing is, there's no gravity. There's no gravity in space. There's no gravity to pull the ink toward the tip of the
So
pen.
it just the planet feels like it's running upside down all the time.
Basically, actually, the best illustration would be underwater,
Why is that a good illustration?
because we'll talk about that here in a second.
This pen is like yeah, so be mine for a long time and it came out and it did actually.
Yeah, it will write for a short amount of time. So.
Oh,
All right.
this one's so early. Alright, got it. Thank you so much. That was great. Oh, it's starting to get better.
All right, let's go over the 7.1 answers.
Are we still doing like transport?
We're going to be adding this to 7.1 and lumping it all together and making the score.
What's not?
All right, so number 1 in 7.1, defining atmosphere. Everybody's there, but it isn't.
She's almost there.
Okay, almost all there. That's good. Atmosphere is a blanket of gases that surrounds the Earth. That's the definition of what we're looking for. Number 2, why is the lower layer of the atmosphere called the homosphere? And that's because it has a constant chemical composition. It's composed of nearly unchanging mixture of several gases. I think that definition is in the work. 3 is nitrogen. I think we jumped over 4 for the, you did it, the answer is troposphere. But 5, three types are UVA, UVB, and UVC. And the one that causes tanning and sunburns is UVB. 6 is mesopause. 7.
What is mesopause? mesosphere.
The
Let's.
coldest point, though, is the mesoplasm. At the very top of the mesosphere. Yes, sir. Okay. Ionosphere, the region of the thermosphere in which radiation causes the air to take the form of plasma. So basically just like
Where is this?
driving through a
I
fire.
know.
Ionosphere?
Not right. Oh, right here. So I have.
Yes?
Okay, so what that is, see how it says plasma, a special state of matter made up of a mixture of electrons and positive ions.
Mm-hmm.
So
You define the plasma?
but it's an atom's missing electron. This portion of the atom is often called the ionosphere. So right after the definition of plasma, it said this portion of the atmosphere is often called.
Ah.
So I just went and did that.
Okay. What's the plasma ball here? There's so many things that I had at one point that I don't have here. Great. Very noticed that. Can mix plasma.
How do you make plasma?
Just do that instead of science. Like, instead of word of
I have another thing to do today. I'm gonna have to do this tomorrow. Maybe we can make some plasma. I have a brilliant idea. Hope it doesn't wreck the microwave.
There's two. You can wreck one and I'll still be one.
But it literally might wreck the microwave. No, if you do it, no. If you contain it, it won't go floating around the microwave. It'll be fine. All right. Yes. Yes. Wonderful plants. Why don't they ever put those kind of things in the experiment section? Ridiculous. No one says they're afraid you might do it. All right. Yeah. So as far as you need to get a little more specific on that. It's just the ionosphere it is a region where there is the plasma. So if you read the part about the plasma, which is good, but you kind of
Well,
missed
see, it
the
goes
point of the
right.
question.
I just feel offended because it says
I
a
know.
special state of matter made up of a mixture of electrons and positive ions. This portion of the atmosphere. That's what I have. Is it wrong?
Take a half point for that because you found it.
Mr. Kent,
Yes.
for that one, I have because much of the substance is made of iron.
I should have described plasma better. Don't take anything off for that one, everybody. Don't worry about it. We'll come back and talk about plasma and ions. Hopefully. Boy, I'm excited. I wish there was a safe word to it. That's fine.
Can you hold plasma? Or would it kill me or something done like
Well, I mean, briefly,
that? Is it healthy for you?
no.
It's like I can't just hold it in my hand.
No.
Why not?
Two reasons. One of them is because it acts very similarly to a gas.
So?
It's very similar to a gaseous state of matter. You can't hold air in your hand. Air is a gas. The other reason is because it tends to be hot. Moving on. A magnetic field, a region in which a magnet affects other objects. The shape of the magnetosphere. Did you guys get these ones? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Sure they did. Okay. They have it. They put it in two separate chunks. Toward the sun, basically, the solar wind compresses the magnetosphere, which we didn't talk about. Then away from the sun, the magnetosphere is stretched out like a tail.
They asked for the
I just
shape.
have the tail part.
You just have the tail part. You have it like it's a kind of a figure eight sort of shape, Richard.
I have
What's
rats
this?
and rats.
Name. Okay, what?
I have
it.
it's shaped
Describe
like
the
solar
shape
winds.
of the magnetosphere. So there was two magnetospheres. So right here, the Earth has a magnet right here. So I saw it right there and I saw it right there. And then there's two things that show the Earth's magnetosphere. So I put down an open clam, a soul, and an egg. Because that's what it looks like.
I just have relevant interest. Yeah, I
We can work with
got
that for now.
that too, and
We'll talk about that a little more here today as well. as we are basically going to be covering, we're not going to be covering much in section 7.2. Actually, we're going to do an experiment write-up. In the sense of what's going to happen. I changed my mind after I wrote what we're going to do today, partially because I know we do this. All right. So, an aurora is a colorful phenomenon that occurs when solar wind particles collide with the ionosphere to produce light.
I have more than one.
I have there now.
Roughly.
I have all huge paragraphs on that.
In that paragraph. All right. You condensed it down pretty hard. You didn't really describe what causes it, though. You should have to think about how the solar wind collides with the ionosphere. Produce light. And 11 Van Allen radiation belts, and 12 14.7 pounds per square inch.
The Van Allen radiation belts I guessed on because I couldn't find anything else that remotely.
Yes.
Mr. Kent.
So what I want you to do, so we have essentially 22 questions once you combine
Mr. Kent.
both of those. I want you to call them 3 points apiece, so each one is wrong for 3 points.
So like you're putting these two together,
I'm putting them together,
the quiz and
the quiz and 7.1. And I'll record this grade twice, sometimes we'll do the same.
Mr.
But
Kent.
each one is
So
3
what-
points off. So
what's
2
six?
wrong would be 6 points off.
So
Six
what's that mean?
6 wrong would be 18 points off, so it would be 88. I mean,
Mr.
82.
Kent.
so
What's
5
two
wrong,
wrong?
2 wrong would be 6 points off, so that would be, and then
5 wrong.
5 wrong would be 15 points off, so it would be 85.
I feel like it was way that like
For 11, I just have,
can't keep it in my
That
head.
would be your rate. So
I just have vision of the magnetosphere.
you say what?
I just have the magnetosphere
Magnetosphere.
for 11.
Let's see.
Well, yeah, they're in the magnetosphere. I don't know.
Right. Right in Van Allen radiation belts. We'll take a half for that. All right, so here's the deal. I feel like we just crashed through this and there's a bunch of stuff that got missed. There's a lot of information that's crammed in here, but there's some stuff I want to talk about. Some of them are the magnetosphere stuff, and some of them are just simply, we didn't spend a lot of time actually talking about air pressure and how it affects our daily lives. And how we can deal with it. First things first, I have a balloon, which we all know how balloons function, right?
They pop.
They do, yes.
It's
They
the
function
funnest
first,
thing to do.
and they pop.
We hand you
I need your grades. So, the deal is, there is, how many pounds of pressure pushing down on a single time?
14.7.
14.7 pounds, and this goes for a balloon as well. So the trick is to make sure there's more pressure inside the balloon than there is outside, and that's what inflates a balloon, technically speaking. I could not get all the parts from my vacuum chamber, and I'm tremendously sad about that. I have one sitting partially completed. I do not have it. It would be a tremendous way to actually show more in depth what we're doing here today. But just keep in mind, have a balloon, 14.7 pounds inside and outside at this point.
So when I blow it up, I'm doing more than 14.7 pounds.
Exactly. You might be only doing 15 pounds of pressure though.
I'm
Right?
weightlifting.
So just a little bit. So, for example, this balloon currently has more than static atmospheric pressure. If you take this balloon and take it up to 10,000 feet, the air pressure is less than 10,000 feet. So what this balloon will do is it'll grow until it inevitably pops. That's how they do weather balloons. Is they take a balloon and they fill it with helium and they tie instruments to it down below and they send it up. And these balloons, if you ever look at them, they look about half or a quarter full of air. And the reason is as they go up, the air pressure gets less and less, and the balloon gets bigger and bigger until eventually it pops and the parachute deploys and comes down, right? That's because the air pressure up above is so much less that the balloon just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until finally it just pops. Done. And then falls down on parachute. Another way to express this is with a straw. So you know when you think of sucking water out of a straw, you think that it's actually you doing the work, but it's not. It's the atmosphere. The trick is when you go ahead and suck water out of a straw, what you're doing is you're creating a lower pressure portion inside your mouth, right? So you have a
I
cup.
still think it's me, dude.
It's not, unfortunately for you. You have your straw like this, and your little sucky mouth over here. Good enough for who we get along with. The thing is, that pressure is pushing down on the water in your cup. So all you're doing is you're making the pressure less inside your mouth than it is on the cup, and the atmospheric pressure pushes down on that water inside the cup and forces it up the straw into your mouth. That's all.
Yeah, but it's because
So
you're
do
sucking.
If you just put your
Well-
lips on the thing and seal it off, the salon is not going to put the straw. You have to start sucking with your lungs, which means you are doing it.
I would recommend that with your mouth more than your lungs. But do it with your lungs, you're going to drown. No. And the reason that you're wrong is because if you would have the same atmospheric pressure outside that cup as you have in your mouth, it wouldn't suck anything out of it. Right? It's actually the atmospheric pressure pushing down on the water in the cup that forces it into your mouth.
It's helping.
There's one other illustration I would like to point out. And this one is so much fun that everybody should do it. I have some old mashed potatoes here. And a straw. Or 17. So if you take a straw, just normal everyday, flexi stick. Just grab it and you go. This worked before.
You don't want to work for
Maybe it won't work for me today. Maybe my potatoes too soft.
It knows that you're wrong about the cup thing.
That's payback. Basically, you take your straw and it's supposed to crumble like that. Exactly. Because the potato is supposed to be harder than your,
Did the
It's
other
hard-
one
harder
go
with
into
straw.
there? Did the other straw go into
the other straw went into it. Yes, that's what you went wrong. You can, every time make it go in, just simply by holding your finger over the end of the straw. And as you push it in, the atmospheric pressure will hold the straw stiff.
Why did
So-
you take off the wiggly part?
Because you can't get a good poke that way. So, as you hold your thumb or finger over the end of your straw, it just pokes directly into it. Sometimes it does it accidentally if your potato's too weak and windy.
Go all the way through.
You can, and then you can shoot. You can shoot a potato piece of it. Just do it.
You said you can.
Oop. And my straw changed.
I thought you said you wanted.
Here, hang on. I got this. Well, it went that far. You can actually see it forcing the air from the straw out through those places where I tested on it before. You feel free to do this experiment yourself, if you wish.
I want to chat it all the way through.
So these are the ones you should use. You should put your thumb over it because they don't have the.
Oh no, there's a piece of potato in there.
You'll get that.
Here, can I put a straw?
I need more straws too.
Well, I don't need
Fill
it,
it up.
and then it
I
will
need
go
some
through.
Oh,
weird.
good.
atmospheric pressure is supposed to hold the straw stiffly
But it doesn't.
to allow it, well, you kink the straw and it'll bend over. So.
These straws are too long
No.
for my hand.
There you go. Okay.
You went all the way through. Nice.
You did?
I know you
Need
don't.
another
3
straw?
4.
Yeah, if it's already kinked, it's not gonna work.
No, hold on.
I can get you a freshie. Make sure you let the girls do it. There's gonna be places that.
There we go.
wanna make sure you get places of
Went all the way through.
potato that are not,
What's that little straw and she can shoot it?
Man, I don't know if I can get that to come out.
It didn't even stay in it.
You have to make sure you hold a nice hard seal over the end of your straw as you,
I can't
as you
get
dangle.
that
How
this.
much that?
I tapped it.
Did it go in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's gonna explode when
You have to make sure you have that seal there.
I know, it's like pointing it at you all at once. I cannot do that. My mouth's gonna
It's
burst.
coming out
before
slowly.
Push it out a little bit and then blow it.
You need.
Both of them can.
I shouldn't have pushed it all the way through. The ambulance too big.
Just make sure you don't kink it before you. Yeah, head straight. You hit it kind of cocked back. Yeah.
Your eyeballs didn't even pop out.
You have to make sure you stab into it exactly straight.
No, that's good. Let's see if this is future shots.
Oh, there's another one you said. All right.
That still won't come out. Come on.
The whole entire air compressor. Get
Hey,
out
look,
also.
there you go.
Pardon me while I let the atmosphere push water in my mouth. Yeah.
Like, you're using muscles to like, yeah.
All right, we are out of time. One thing about the magnetosphere, I want to just refresh it. I don't have any work other than I want you to do a one paragraph experiment right now about atmospheric pressure and what we just talked about with the potato. I'll give you a format for that here in a second.
That doesn't go near us. It's kind of disappointing.
Here's the deal.
Really disappointing.
The magnetosphere, you guys know how comets function, correct?
Sort of.
Basically, the sunshine just blasts radiation at something, and the comet gets a tail because the solar wind pushes the tail away from the sun at all times. The magnetosphere is acting a little bit the same way, right? So the magnetosphere of the Earth is affected by the solar radiation. So it would look like this, except for the fact that it gets blasted with solar wind, and so it gets squished on this side, and it gets stretched out and long on this side. That's what's going on there. And then auroras are when that solar wind hits the ions in the...
Oh.
When the solar wind hits the ions in the atmosphere. All right, that's enough weaponry.
What? I just got one. I just got
That's good enough. That's perfect.
Did she want more shot?
No,
There you go.
outside of recess. All right. So what I want you to do for the experiment is I want you to briefly describe the hypothesis that we came up with and how we ran through our experiment. It doesn't have to be just 3 or 4 sentences.
So what's the experiment?
The experiment with the straws.
So like
The reason for this is because it's only fooling around unless you write it down. Then it's an experiment. Then it's science. So you have to write it down because otherwise
Yeah,
you
but I
just
don't fully understand.
I'm not sure what happened.
So what we did
The thumb
is that we have our potato, and we jammed our straw into it. The idea was the straw is too weak to withstand the jamming by itself, So what we had to do is we had to cap off the top of it to make it so that the inside pressure would help hold the straw stiff as we jammed it into the
So
container.
I'm just basically.
So we were playing with
saying-
atmospheric
So we're just
pressure to
like
help
keeping the
hold the
pressure
straw.
in.
Right. We
Is
were,
all that pressure going out of the potato you generally?
yeah, like if you looked in the potato, you see the water and stuff oozing out of the potato.
Well, we should have got like a brand.
Sure, our potatoes were definitely a little bit on the sad side, but oh well. that's why I got them donated.
So I described this experiment we did.
Yes, the experiment we did.
That'd be cool.
And like.
All right. And I want that to be handed in so I can grade it. So just a few sentences.
Are we actually doing a worksheet?
What?
No worksheet. That's all I got for today.
Wait,
So
I was
just,
gonna go on to 7.2 and talk about the experiment we did.
that's all we're
Yeah,
doing.
That's all you do. You give me like 3 or 4 sentences. With hypothesis and why, how we executed it.
I put my outline and notes in there.
Thank you very much.
Is
All
in
right, biology.
Just want to check or what?
And you understand it, right?
Yes.
Muzzle rolls his cannon.
A chunk. All right. What are the bond cavities? Which cavity? What are the 4 body cavities? Yeah, it's supposed to be kind of the pelvic cavity being separate. There's 5.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The diaphragm is not a cavity.
I think I maybe have.
What are the cavities? Tracy.
Cranial. Is that one?
Say again?
Cranial,
The cranial. That's the one in the head?
spinal,
Yes.
thoracic,
Thoracic.
yeah, and abdominal.
Abdominal and pelvic, I guess we want to separate those as fine.
No, I have it right. It's just,
All right. And how about some of the bodies or the systems? There are 11 systems. Give me at least 3 of them, Christy.
Skeletal, muscular, nervous.
And nervous. What about you, Lisa? You have 3 more.
Nervous, and respiratory.
Sure. What's homeostasis? Homeostasis is number 6. I'll just do it.
Keeps the body from dying.
Keeps the body from dying.
Yeah.
That's true. Basically, homeostasis is just a stable environment for the body. I mean, it's a
When it
stable
works
environment.
together.
When everything's working. If everything works, you get homeostasis, and if it doesn't, you get not that. You die. Or at least get very, very ill.
I'm not very, very ill, but some of my things aren't working.
Yeah, your skeletal system has been damaged. Homeostasis. All right. All right. So I'm not going to go over. We're so close out of time. We're not going to do much more than that. Circulatory system. For number 3, it says the life of the flesh is basically, yeah. The importance of the circulatory system is that the circulatory system supplies food, water, and oxygen. Waste products. That's for 3. 4 is the body's defense system against disease-causing organisms. And 5, the brain allows voluntary controls of the body and controls involuntary actions such as heart rate and breathing.
So for 3 I have the life of the
questions with what?
That's also part of what they have. And I guess I can let you have that.
That's from the Bible.
You
Yep.
can study at
What is
Robert's.
this?
Remember when you drove us? This last time was kind of tacky.
Yeah, I can look at
Do you have that time show?
that. Nope. I don't know. Maybe Miss Amy took it.
No, she had, we gave her, we just had a copy.
Might be able to
All
ask.
the teachers' time.
All right. To everything a purpose is thing about 6.2. There's no real quiz here at the end of 6.2. We kind of just we're gonna have to do some work to keep some memorization going on.
It says, Yardig closed his eyes and hit his forehead to perform an incident. But another moment he grew, your mother refused to smile. You have a little brother, she reminded me. I know, answered Yardig, but we just keep him for a pet.
Exactly. All right. There are 4 types of tissues. There are. More memorization. I know. The 4 types of tissues are muscle tissues. So that's it's easy.
Muscle, nerve, connective, and I don't know how you say it.
Muscle, nerve, connective, and
And I don't know.
epithelial, I think is how you pronounce that. Epithelial and connective. So, muscle tissues contract and expand, or contract. Muscle tissues do not expand. At least you can't make them expand. So, like any motion that your body does is due to a muscle contracting. So, when your arm moves this way, it's this muscle contracting. When your arm moves this way, it's this muscle contracting. Right? This one just relaxes. So, contracting muscles. We'll talk about those more after a while. They can only do one thing. They can only contract. Even your heart muscles you only contract. They do not expand. It's like trying to push a rope. Epithelial tissues.
Push a what?
So what?
Push a what?
You cannot push a rope.
Then why
That's the
all
reason
body
that muscles
parts?
don't work. Epithelial tissues line all body tissue parts. Oh, and by the way, nerve tissues. They control organs, coordinates everything, and nerve tissues. We'll talk more about those later. But basically, yes, they connect everything to everything else. So that's
That's why you're nervous.
very, very important. Epithelial tissues line all body parts. They cover and protect everything. They regulate temperature. They regulate what enters and exits the organs. They may also make lubricants. Some have cilia, hair-like projections. Like you'll find those like in nose hairs. Or inside your nose, you have hairs, probably. You must know all this stuff.
What did you say about it?
Called cilia, and that's part of the epithelial tissue. Part of the epithelial tissue is that it has little hairs poking out of there to help in your nose is to help keep the dust down. Then there's connective tissues, and those would be like tendons, ligaments. The interesting thing is called tissue fluids. Which is
Yeah,
an
they
interesting thing.
ask you for fluids and they don't do anything.
Well, a large percentage of the body tissue is an average. So a large percentage of your body tissue is water. So like even your muscles are largely water.
You just put a little
A
water.
person is what, like 80? It's like 90% water.
Oh.
You're basically completely
Did I
water.
put 4?
What?
Isn't it like 80? Did you accidentally put 4 up there?
No, I didn't.
That's like God does it is better than
You
me.
purposely-
That's basically
I purposely
what it is.
put
Can we just talk about it?
I'd like to see something done. So one of the body fluids is blood, obviously. Then there's the cerebral spinal fluid that surrounds your brain and spine, spinal cord. There's a interstitial fluid that is in your lymph system. The lymph system helps to fight disease. Then there's membranes. Membranes cover parts of bodies, so things like, well, I guess skin would be a membrane of some sort. Wish I had an animal like that, but no. Should have taken that lock.
Oh, I haven't wanted any.
I actually have some things going on, but we're not ready for them yet, so.
What
I really want to do it.
What if we don't organize that many times?
Today. You're going to have to be part of this.
And not a pig either, because I like pigs.
Little dead baby pig. It'll be fun.
No.
It'll smell bad and you'll be able to want to try it out. All right.
They don't smell bad.
It's going to smell terrible because it will have been in
Well, can we just?
no.
We can set the grasshopper.
That's
what I'm
gonna do.
Yeah, Mr. Pendleton. Grasshopper.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with a worm and ease you into this.
There's not
You,
much in the
can
worm.
you dissect the worm?
I have.
Like,
You gotta get the
can
big
tell
ones.
the animals
And then frogs. And then,
Let's just start with
Baby
a
pig.
pig and then we'll be done.
Yeah. Sorry, Lisa.
Instead of ease our colons, let's just
I
ease
got a
it.
pig for my birthday, so.
you'll see,
I like.
like, there's some memories, even like above your fingernail, there's some memories there.
You know what was so funny? He was dissecting frogs and salamanders.
Yeah.
They started talking to
Our
him.
skin is a cutaneous, or cutaneous. Our skin is a cutaneous membrane. That is on page 89, right, both cells and matrix. Mucous membranes, or like throat, mouth, and nose would have mucous membranes, so like softer and slimier type thing. And then you have cutaneous membranes, which are like skin. And the linings of your joints would have like synovial membranes, and if that gets damaged, and that can cause some struggles. And they're also a type of connective tissue. So like, for example, Derek's whole leg issue could damage some of the synovial membranes, or some of the connective tissue between his joints. It causes trouble later on in life. And there's cells and matrix. Matrix are basically things, material surrounding cells. And vestigial organs. What?
So for number one, are we supposed to just
Different
write one
tissue
thing?
things?
No, for each one. Purpose of tissues, purpose of fluids.
Okay, but what about fluid? Because there's the thing that says tissue fluid.
That's the one you have to use.
Just under fluids.
I like how it just
Fluids,
I don't know what to write. What is the purpose of fluid?
it says surrounds the body cells and plasma. Fluids that originate in blood plasma and surrounds the body cells. That's what I have. I didn't know that.
Where did you see that?
I looked it up.
It's like
The purpose of, to keep everything
Lubricated.
I know, why do you get headaches then if you're mostly made up of water? You shouldn't be able to.
water doesn't fix anything.
Fix a lot of that.
Mom always says if we have something
All right.
burning on us, that big reason of water and stuff.
We'll come back to that here in a minute. All right, so the matrix of a bone tissue would be like materials where calcium is stored. So like that's one of the things that holds the bone cells together as a matrix. Think of cement, right? So cement is a matrix that holds the gravel and sand together, right? That's what a matrix is. The matrix of blood is plasma. It's a liquid. The matrix of cartilage is rubbery and flexible. Then there's vestigial organs. Those are organs that a lot of doctors thought for a long time served no useful purpose.
But now they are.
Well, the thing is, sometimes you just don't know right away. Sometimes it takes a little while. Like wisdom teeth, for example, seem to be vestigial.
Do you have your wisdom teeth?
I do.
I don't have any room for mine, so.
Well,
Why do you
so
pull-
get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
But
Why are you
like
getting
the
are you
appendix,
getting them pulled out?
the appendix for no, mine don't cause me any trouble. There's no reason.
Dad's wisdom teeth didn't come in.
There's no reason to get anything done if it don't cause any trouble.
He has more wisdom.
The appendix, for example, is something that used to be called a vestigial organ. People thought it had no purpose. Apparently, it helps to fight infection. Even things like the gallbladder used to be referred to as a vestigial organ. It helps to break down oils and fats in your joint. Tonsils, same thing. It wasn't very long ago people thought that was just a useless something left over.
Poor
from whatever.
Sturson just got his taken out because his mom said he didn't need them anymore. She makes him sick.
Out of the blue.
She makes him sick every day, and then all of them eat glasses, and they actually don't.
Funny. That is funny. Fine.
You don't need your tonsils anymore.
One interesting
That's
thing,
what mom told us.
and here again, we're gonna talk about some of this stuff later. This is kind of just a primer, kind of a thing to get you started on things of the human body. But like nerve cells, for example, they will wear out and die. And you can't, nerve cells do not get replaced. So if you damage a nerve cell, it will not get replaced. And that's like a extreme cold, or if you cut your hand, like I did at one point when I was a child, fell off a horse, grabbed a barbed wire fence. Turns out there's a nerve in your hand that runs from about right here up to the tip of your finger.
Cut it.
So that doesn't feel anything.
Why did you grab me about that thing?
First
Your
time.
finger can't feel anything.
Right here? No.
So if I just slashed it with a knife, you can feel anything.
No, like if you got it over here, I did. But I got it in a chainsaw.
And you didn't feel it?
Well, I felt it. And it kind of throbbed through my whole hand after a while. But this finger itself was... Say what?
Looking at it.
You're doing mean things too.
Oh yeah, I lived a dangerous childhood.
I know how that feels.
Well, one time, my dad and his cousin were in the garden digging holes.
Which
And
cousin?
I don't even know. It
There's
was
too many of them.
Lisa, I have no clue.
That's good enough for now. We're going to do some review on this, and I will have a
He had a
short
rate.
quiz next Monday for you.
I don't know. My dad was in the garden digging a hole with his cousin. And his cousin had a rake and pulled it way back behind his head and went, down! And dad was on the other side.